Hey there, I am excited to get started. I'm going to show you how to draw. I'm going to show you how to draw a whimsical face. Uh, what we're going to do is super fun, and it's also super easy. As much as this might feel daunting, it's actually really simple and it has a very creative feel to it. And I know that you're going to do fabulous. So all you need is a few supplies. Let me just make sure that I can see you all and that you can see me. And then I will get started with this, which will be so much fun. So grab your supplies if you don't have them yet so that we can get stuck right into this and do it together, or you can follow along with the process and then do it later. But I think that if you follow along with me as you go, you're going to get a concept for how this works. And I'm not looking for you to do a perfect job. I'm looking for you to get the concept down, and then you can start to build on what you've learned. So what you're going to do is actually something kind of similar to this style. This is whimsical. This is whimsical. This is not. This is more of a realistic look, and you can see, those are my hands, and I do look like this. And if you look at this, you can recognize me against a photo. And so that's sort of leaning in the direction of photorealism. And this oftentimes is what we think of when we look at doing this so that we can draw people. We just think, oh, I need this to look like they look in real life. But the thing is this can be kind of hard to achieve, and it takes a long time. And yet something like this can not really take as long, and it is quite fun and leaves a lot of creative space for you. And so just so you can get some ideas here. So I drew another one here, and her face is real tall and her eyes are closer together and her lips are real taut, and I haven't added a lot of color, so she's very flat so far. Here you can see I've added color to her, which makes her a little bit more fun. Sometimes you can sketch people and you can get this real wide-faced man or this real skinny person that has these cheekbones that are a little bit hollowed out there. You're the one that's in charge when you go for a sort of creative feel. So what we're going to do is, with just a few simple supplies, we will create. And I'm going to just put this off to the side, and we're just going to work with a piece of paper. So the lighting in here is a little bit funny. If you were to look at her in real life, she has like a pale pink color here, and she's not super washed out. It is the lighting that makes her so washed out. So the thing is when you go with these things, you want like deep dark colors. And you'll notice one mistake that I've got in here that I have yet to correct, and that is that she needs the whites of her eyes. You can see I've got a little glimmer of her white in her eye, and she needs that in here in order to feel like there's life in her. Right now she looks like she's got a dark soul, basically. We need the light to reflect in her eyes. And I'm not going to show you all of the color part of this, but I am going to show you all of the drawing elements, and then you can add color. So perhaps in another training we could look at how to color a whimsical girl, which would be fun. So if that's of interest, then just let me know. So let's put her off to the side, and we've got our general idea of what we're looking for. And just so that I can do this simply with you, we're just going to use some regular printer paper, and we're going to use a pencil. I'm going to use a super dark 2B pencil. You'd probably use a typical pencil as an HB. I'm going to use a darker one so that you can see what I'm drawing. And you're going to want a ruler so that you can kind of measure what you're doing. And then lastly, you need an eraser. And you can just use a simple white eraser. I'm using a Tiki 30 white eraser. It just seems to be soft and it doesn't kind of mush things around. As soon as you start erasing too long and it gets dark, you just rub your finger on it until some of that darkness goes away and then just wipe it off. And then all of that doesn't spread all the graphite everywhere. So these white erasers are fabulous. And then if you need something right in a little tiny area, then you can use something like a Mono Zero from Tombow. And these are literally just the tiniest little things. So if you work on like an area and you get it just the way you want it, great. And then you go to erase something and it doesn't work. So my feeling about doing whimsical girls like this is that you should get yourself set up with a basic drawing that you're after, and then once you have it set up the way you want, then only then you go in with something like a pen that is like an 05, 01, some of these type of sizes of fine liner pens, and you could use those. For me, I absolutely love my fountain pen. It's not great on a Bible, so if you do this like in a Bible margin, or you do it on transparently or whatever, you probably wouldn't want to use a fountain pen. But outside of your Bible, it is super fun. And this is a Lamy Safari, and I have put inside of it a converter here, which you can buy online, and I filled it with something called carbon ink. And this carbon ink is from Japan. It is super fast drying. So I'm going to use that today, but the same concept exists. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by actually drawing. How do you get the dimensions right when you're drawing? So first of all, we want to look at trying to get some height in her face. Now, in contrast to what we do with a real life example, we look at a real life face in order to understand the dimensions, but we're going to do things just a little bit larger than life. See, her eyes are just obviously too big, and her nose is a little bit small and dainty. Her lips are accentuated in size. We're making her eyebrows thinner than they would be in real life. So we are accentuating her eyes and lips, and the other things, we are making them melt away. We're adding a little bit more color to her cheeks than we might, but the actual structure of how tall or wide her face is, that's completely down to us. Now, if you think about what feels beautiful to you, then draw that. If you want to do a cute little plump round girl, then do that. But remember that a face is not round, and we need to draw, to begin with, the height of her face that starts all the way at the top, crown of her head, all the way down to her chin. So we can see there is an oval here. So see, if we get this here, we can see that that's about 6 inches tall. But when it's wide, we're only going from cheekbone to cheekbone, and that right there is only 4 inches. So it's 6 inches tall by 4 inches wide. So let's give that a shot. So first of all, see how I'm holding my pencil like this? I'm just going to draw, there's a top for myself, and I'm then going to go down here and say, there's a bottom for myself. Now I need to do about 2/3 of that this direction. So now I'm going to give myself a little bit of space here. I can see that's not quite wide enough, right? So this is really loose. Don't do huge detail drawing right now. We're trying to get a figure in. So you can see this is the same concept, right? So now I need to sort of round this out. And I keep in mind that the cheekbones kind of go in at the bottom, but at the top it's still round and wide because it's the head. So we're gonna do her head like this, and watch how I'm holding my pencil, because I am not using my pencil like this everywhere. I'm only using the pencil the way it's going to cause me to draw the shape I need, and I might be able to draw in a better shape if I use it like this or like this. So can you see that looks like the top of a head, right? This isn't the forehead, this is the top of the crown of the head. So get yourself a crown of the head there. Now we're looking at her chin here. We can see that that's vaguely in the middle. This is the thing, is because this is not realism and it's whimsical, we want her to have a little bit of character, so it's okay if it's slightly wonky. Go with it, have fun with it, let it just be a creative expression. So now I, at this point, am not just going to mimic what I did up here, because then she's going to have essentially a very chubby neck and chin area. And what I want is this sort of slender feel. That's going to give her this whimsical, delightful feel. If you want somebody that's a little chubby and chunky, then do a more rounded cheekbone. And you kind of pick what you want. I'm going to go for somebody that looks similar to this, so you can kind of see from start to finish at the same time here. So as we go about this, let's look at that cheekbone area and kind of get a figure on both sides of what we're looking at. So we see this looks symmetrical-ish, and then just round it out, finish it off. So super simple, right? If it doesn't feel right, then adjust it. If it feels like her chin is coming down too far and it's a little bit too pointy, then just fix it. And this is why we're going a little bit on the light side. Okay, so now we have a shape, and I can see that this is a nice little inlet of her cheek area, and I want to do the same on this side. Or I could go a little bit more wide. You decide what you want as you're drawing, because you got the concept right. You've got the general idea. Now that might look like she's got anorexia if it's too thin, right? So you get somewhere in there, and as you get the shape right, you can see that it's a little bit in keeping with there being a head at the top, that top crown of there, and then we've got this area here where the cheeks are, and those jawbones, and then right in the middle of all of this, right, that is where her eyes are going to go. And I'll show you how this works. So see here, this is 6 inches, and right in the middle I actually moved her eyes slightly too high on purpose, just to play around with this. And so this is, in realistic world, our eyes, the middle of our eyes should be right in the middle. So she should have her eyes slightly here. And I kind of like it this way. I'm okay with it. That's how we kind of play around with things. So super fun to do this, and you just play around with this a little bit, but don't mess with it so far that it doesn't look like reasonable. That's the trick. So how do we do this? Let's treat this like 3 almonds. And now it seems a little bit weird, but the easiest way to do this is to pretend that we've got sort of 5 eye shapes in here, and then that's going to give you your spacing. So if we say that we're going to just give ourselves something to work with, so here is the middle of there, and here is this, right? So we get that in place, and then we know that our eyes are going to go right here. Now if you look at her, you can see that she's got the same amount of space between, only I slightly closed it because I want to accentuate her eyes, so I made her eyes slightly bigger. But generally, I can fit another eye in between. That's realistic. With whimsical, we're just going to make it slightly different, so there's just a tiny bit smaller one space there, and then you should be able to fit the same on the other sides too. So in this case, I'm going to go like this. Just pretend you are drawing an almond, right? And it is a very, in my case, I want her to have a real high top to that. So here's her first one, and then I'm putting another one on this side. Now if you can't figure out the placement of this, then ask yourself, okay, so first of all, are these the same size as each other? I can see that one's not, so I'm going to make it a little bit wider. But I can tell that if I wanted to, I could fit a third thing in there, and I could fit another one right here, and I could fit another one right here, right? So the width of her face isn't realistic, and that's okay because I've just slightly moved it in. The question is all about whether you can just slightly move things, not completely change them so they're unrealistic or unreasonable. So play around with the shape and size of things, and then have fun with the fact that it's creative and you don't have to really do too much realistic feel, which then means it's less perfect. So at the moment, we're going with her eye being about here and here. And we've got these sort of almond shapes. So I'm going to erase the inside of the eyes. Now, in order to be realistic to the essence of a face, we need a few little features. So you can see the tear ducts here, and pay attention to some details. So the eyeball itself, actually, so let's get that little tear duct area in there, right? It doesn't have to be realistic, it just has to be playful and present. So we get those little things in there, and then get a little bit more aggressive with your shape so that your pencil drawing is stronger than your sketches that you have, because you're starting to become more clear on what you want, right? Make sure that if you were to draw a pencil across here, that the pieces of the eye are all meeting in the same spot. And I can see that my tear duct here needs a little bit of work on that side, so I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. So now we have these sort of shapes. I hope you are finding this fun. I love this sort of thing. I can tell that this shape is slightly bigger than this one, and I personally just want her eyes to be bigger in this particular image, so I'm going to adjust this one instead of this one, but I'm thinking that one just doesn't feel right, so I'll fix it, right? So you just adjust as you go. As you figure out the way you want this to be, then you need to put some eyeballs in there. And think about, your eyeballs are actually perfectly round shapes. So what we're going to do is just put them in here, but remember that your eyeballs aren't a whole ball that you can see right inside of this space. Your eyelids cover those. So the ball needs to be hiding behind there, and we're going to see it here as well. So we just see part of it. If you were going to do a circle there, if you have a problem with that, use something like this tool here. This is from Helix, and you can sort of pick a circle shape. You don't want one that fits inside. You want one that is actually not fitting inside, like this one. And so you can actually use this to create the shape of your eye if you want this. And the nice thing about this is that it's actually going to force you to be exactly the same shape or size of eyeball on both of the sides. But in my opinion, that gets a little bit realistic and isn't totally necessary. So, right, you get the idea. We have this in here. We're going to have an eye in the center, and we need a little reflection. So get yourself a circle that is dead on in the center, unless she's looking away. Pick the same right there, and there is the eye color, so you can fill this in a little bit if you want. So you can see that darker spot, and this is that pupil area. Right, and then we've got some eye here. Now I'm showing you the structure of the face in this, so just work with the fact that this isn't going to be a totally finished product, because you're going to need to spend some time making it your own, the style that you need. So just make it like a pinwheel, and make some time to just go in and play around with it, add some color. You don't even need these lines if you add some color, but we're just in pencil today. So you can see that we have some general elements here. We've got our eyes, we've got the general space that we have in the face. Now we need some eyebrows and we need some nose and stuff like that. So we're going to go halfway again, right? So we've gone halfway down, and I've made this just slightly higher again, just like I did with this. I just fudged with it a little bit and put her eyes slightly too high for realistic, and that is fun. So it's halfway. And then on this section here, we're going to go halfway again. So see, we'll put this over here and we can see that this is halfway between her face, right? So right here, her eyes and her chin, halfway through is where we've got our lips and nose. So am I trying to show you perfect science today? Absolutely not. I'm trying to show you how to do something that is playful and fun and requires you to not have perfectionism. So get in here and add yourself some lips. Now you can do some really big lips, or you could do something a little bit more like this, that's just sort of a small pouting lip. Or you can go a little bit more like any of these. There's so many different ways that you can do eyes and lips and all of these features. So remember, you've got yourself a small nose, a wider nose, it's some sort of pouty lips or big full lips. You decide what this looks like. Now what you want to do is look at that nose next, and then we'll put the lips underneath. But you need to think, can I actually fit those lips there? We're going for sort of halfway between this, right? And what I'm going to do is just slightly higher than that. I'm going to put a little half circle right here in the middle, right? That's going to be the bottom of her nose. Now we need to create the two little nostrils. To create the little nostrils, we need to go the opposite direction. Now we're creating the top of that nostril, and we'll do the other side. There's the top of that nostril. Now the more times you do this, the more it will be a little bit more delicate, so don't worry if it feels clunky the first time. So we've got this in here. I can see right here that her eye is too tall right here, and it's leaning towards this, feeling too out of place. So I'm going to do that to bring it into balance, right? So now I need to show a little bit of shadow underneath these circles. So fill these in a little bit, and that's going to show us that there's some darkness underneath there. And I need that outside. And for me, I'm not going to just make this one big piece. I'm just going to suggest. So I'm going to go right here. And now how big you make this is how wide her nose is going to be. So if you want her to have a really narrow, small nose, so I've just looked at this and I feel like her nose is too big, right? So I'm going to make her nose even smaller, and I'm going to bring that right in here. There we go. So that feels a little bit better. But at the moment, she's got some eyes, she's got some, and we'll add some eyelids and all of that here in a sec, but we've got a nose, but it needs a bridge. And in my opinion, the best thing to do is to add light to one side and just draw a line. For me, I tend to always put darkness on a specific side of my drawings, and you can see that the shadow is on the right hand side of the nose. That for me works. You pick a side, or do it per image, but just pick something that is consistent. So draw the bridge of the nose. The wider out you go, the wider that person's nose is going to feel. And you can see here that when I put the color in, I went in and added that shadow, the light shadow right next to that, and that kind of shows you the bridge of her nose here. or it's a little less subtle, or it's more subtle in this case. So I hope this is making sense for you. So we're getting somewhere with this. I'm going to go for a narrow bridge, but see, this is going to actually work its way up directly into the eyebrow area. It's like a drawing straight into the eyebrow area. So with one swoop, because these bones are connected. So what I'm going to do, and what you're going to do is just give yourself a little top bridge to the eye, just like that. It's nice to have you guys with me. So give yourself a top bridge to both of these that matches, just like this. And then think, how am I going to make this go in here so that she has a narrow nose that works with this? And I'm just going to add a little bit here, and that will connect with this, right? Just fine. Now I can get rid of that middle piece because it's kind of getting in my way now, right? So starting to get somewhere with this. And now the reason why these eyes feel so wild is because they don't have any context. So I've got myself an eyebrow here, and just think, look at yourself in the mirror. It's usually quite thin or whatnot here, and then it gets a little bit thicker towards the middle, and then it becomes more narrow here, and it usually extends just past the eye on both sides. Now if I were to just keep doing it like this, I won't actually draw the strokes in the same kind of likeness as this, but if I move my hands, then I can mimic that and see what I'm doing. So just be mindful that you may need to move your hands around and just look at what you're doing. How high is this side? How can I match that? How low is that one? So as you go, you will figure out what you are doing, and every single one of them that you do, you'll get a little bit better. So just play around with it. Have fun. That's the most important part of this. And don't do one of these in your Bible the very first time you do it, expecting it to be perfect, because these take time to learn how to do, and it is fun. But it will take you some practice. So just get yourself a book and draw girls in it. Get familiar with the process. So we need a little bit of a obvious line here, and this is where the skin of our eyelid folds back into this crevice here. So this can actually go somewhere in this region right here, and you can either just sort of suggest it here, or you can actually draw it subtly there. You decide how you want that to look, but everything needs to just feel delicate and dainty with a whimsical feel. And just look at what you're doing on the other side to see if you are making it match. So now we have a bit more context with this. We need to think about the bottom side as well, because sometimes there can be a little bit of a feel here. So this is all starting to come together, right? As you get your eyelids on here, you're going to think maybe this needs to change, and if it does, then change it. So you have a clear area where your eyelid actually goes right over your eyeball, and you can feel that. And that is okay. You'll notice that the top of your eyelid extends a little bit past the bottom part that tucks underneath, and that is very similar to here. But remember, you're trying to accentuate and just draw things out. And for all things being equal, you must have eyelashes. Eyelashes are one of those things that takes a little bit of effort. What you want to do is put your pencil down where you're going to go, and then just drag out and up, and then release. But the whole time you're doing it, your pencil's getting further and further away from the paper. So get yourself used to how you're doing this, and then as soon as you've done this, you need to switch it, but it's going to get a little bit wonky if you do that. So if you hold your pencil this way, then you'll be able to get those eyelashes and get that same kind of feel that flicks out. So it's a little bit higher here. Just keep in mind that if you go a little bit crazy and these are touching up here, then it's going to look like you've put false eyelashes on her. And if that's what you're going for, then you just rock that. But if not, then just be mindful of it. Now, closer to here, we don't have as much, right? So see what you're going for, stick with it on both sides, and don't put eyelashes all the way into this area. They kind of stop around here where the eyeball is, and then underneath you literally just want to be suggesting those eyelashes, because I find with these whimsical girls, if you add too much, even just the slightest too much, it can kind of feel like your eyes are just in your face, especially if you don't end up adding that color and getting more layers there. It can be a little bit overwhelming to look at, even if it is fun and easy. So you can see she's coming together and she's starting to look like a girl. And remember that this is actually a ball here. So as this protrudes forward, as you can see, I'm going out this direction on this side, but on that side I'm going this direction, and that's giving the appearance that this is coming forward, and it's almost straight when it is in front of you at its top peak. So some of these might be a little bit different, right? Where they're kind of crossing over, but then they're all going to be facing inward on the inside and outward on the outside. And that way you're going to end up with things showing that shape. So as we have figured this out, and now we add one extra line here because your eye has a little bit of a sort of lip here, which is where your eyelashes attach to the outside of. Just literally get in front of a mirror and just stare at yourself for a little bit. Let's stare at those little details, or look up women on Pinterest and that sort of thing, and look at those details. So I've added a lot of dark values. That means that I'm heavy-handed rather than light-handed. So those dark values are going to cause everything to feel dark in that area, and I'm going to have to darken other areas in order for that to make sense. Now, if I'm doing color on this, then I want all of this to be these light sketches, and then I can go in with color and do all the color later. But this is just how to draw the features, right? And we can draw with color in another session if we'd like to. So lastly, we need to get some lips in here. We need a little bit of a suggested area on the upper lip here, so give her somewhere here, just underneath. And now we need to add some lips in there. And I personally feel like her face is going to be too narrow to handle those lips because her eyes are nice and juicy. Maybe her lips need to be juicy. So this is how we kind of just make the woman come to life on the page, right? We just let our creative flair unfold as we go, and don't worry about it all being so perfect or as you imagine it. So here, go underneath, just like we've got this half circle here, give yourself a little half circle here, or if you want it to be really pronounced, then make it super sharp. But remember, sharp edges aren't on the human body. So nice and gentle curves. And here is where you're going to either go wide and out, or you're going to go straight back down. So I'm going to shoot for something kind of like this so that I can have some cute pouty sort of lips, and I'm going to go in here like this with a curvy line, remember, because we don't have sharp edges on the human body. And right where this line is, I'm going to just put a curve to try and bring it to the edge of that, right where I've just pushed it in. I'm going to bring a curve there to bring it to it, right? Now on the bottom, rather than having it meet the other side, almost at the edge. You can see this is a little bit further in. In my instance, I'm going to actually bring it further in. So you can see in either instance, regardless of how wide your lips are, you're going to put a bottom here, however tall you want your bottom lip to be, and then this is going to be further in, further in. And think about where you're doing this so that it matches on both sides and looks symmetrical with the nose, and you're good. So now we're starting to see somebody appear off the page, right? So she's starting to take some shape, and then we can go in and think about the fact that when the light hits, because this is our darker area right here, when the light hits this, we're going to find that there's going to be some shadowing along the bottom of the lip, and also the light isn't really going to hit this portion of her lips at the bottom, right? So the bottom part of both of these lips is where we're going to find that darkness. And so there we are. So as I finish this girl, I need to give her some hair, I need to give her some ears, and just hold your own hands next to your ears and draw them towards your eyes. You can see that your ears need to be somewhere in here. Now, if you're drawing somebody who has a long hair or hair that covers the ears in most instances, this really won't matter, but we can know where they belong. Right now, I need to just go in and add some hair. An easy thing to do is to just pick where on her head I'm going to go for a part. So am I going to do a side part like this? Am I going to go for a middle part? Am I going to do some where we've got a girl here who has a fringe or bangs? If we do that, then we've got a middle part and bangs. I'm going to go for another side part like this. I kind of like those. So let's say her side part here, we need to think about how high her forehead is. It gets a little bit overwhelming if you see so much forehead. Somewhere in here works. So this is going to be my side part. And then I'm going to, in one fell swoop, I'm going to take this all the way around her face, just like this, right? And then I'm going to follow that. And again, just like with the eyeball, I'm trying to get some feel of the shape. So think about how you can do this so that it shows that this is a shape. It's not a flat object, right? And then recognize that your hair is not going to be stuck to your scalp completely flat. So this needs to now extend above the head shape and around here. So there's a bit of volume, just like that. And then we finish by putting a neck on. And you can then take this sketch idea and turn it into something that works inside of a Bible with a quote or something like that. Is this not fun? I think this is easy enough to do, but you've just got to think about the details one thing at a time. So get yourself into a pattern with it all and give it a try, and then share. And if you get stuck, share in the group and just say, okay, what can I do differently? Share with us and ask for help, because we'd love to all help each other out, and I would love to help you as well. So you're not alone, and I really want to help you to grow creatively. I know that her eyes are really dark, and I could fix that by going in and, erasing sections and kind of lightening create yourself a fun little girl or woman and share with us. And then let's keep growing together. We can challenge each other to keep on growing creatively. It is super, super fun. I think that the more times you do this, it gets easier. And once you've sketched an idea, then take that concept and start adding color to it, and it will all come to life. So don't be afraid to practice on regular paper and then take it out and do more on something more substantial when you're feeling confident with your ideas.